Bitcoin is now reaching some critical levels on the daily RSI. If you look at my camera left, you can see that the RSI downtrend line is coming up right where we are now. So the price for Bitcoin has not really been doing all that much. We tested a slightly lower low, the price bounced up to the same levels that we've been at for about a month now. So not much going on in terms of price, but in terms of RSI structure, you could say there's a different story here. So we're going to talk about why this is important in today's video. Now let's get started. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is Wednesday, September 13th, middle of the week, and Bitcoin not doing all that much, but the RSI is at a critical point, a point that could end up being pivotal for the price of Bitcoin. But there are many factors here for the daily RSI, and what you can see is a common pattern that every time the RSI breaks above the RSI downtrend line, we get a significant move up, right? And so this continues to happen throughout the entire range, throughout the entire year so far of 2023. Every time we break out of the RSI downtrend line, a huge pump takes place. Now, Bitcoin is coming up on that RSI resistance once again. Again, if you look to my camera left, there you go. We are sitting right there at the critical zone. But there's also another piece of this story. It's not as simple as just these RSI downtrend lines. You can see we have an RSI uptrend line that we've been bouncing off of. We've had higher lows on the RSI throughout the year, all the way up until where? Our breakdown point. So if I move a vertical line over to that point and I color it red, and then I can bring a circle over as well to mark up that breakdown zone. So there is weakness in this chart. I mean, that RSI breakdown was not random. It happened where? When we broke our trend line. So Bitcoin has broken the trend line. We've lost a lot of momentum. We've broken the main RSI support structure that stems back the entire year. So things are a little bit different now. Instead of mostly playing above the 50 level on the RSI, we are starting to find resistance at that 50 level. And it could mean that because we broke our trend line, we may be looking for further downside where this critical zone could be continued resistance. I mean, that is quite the possibility at this point. Because Bitcoin broke that RSI structure, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to convince me that if we break this downtrend, we're just good to go, everything's back to normal. If we do break above this resistance on the daily RSI, we're going to have to back test it as new support and actually confirm the resistance as support. There is a strong possibility that this RSI downtrend line could remain our resistance. So if we reject here in the short term, well, this may mean that we may come back to the oversold zone and then look to break out towards the end of the year. And if that is the case, Bitcoin may be looking for another test towards some lower levels, maybe the golden retrace at 21,700 that we've been talking about, and staying below our longer term resistance here, and then looking to get a breakout into the new year. This is still the scenario that I'm looking at, which is not really all that crazy of a scenario. I know people think, oh, Kevin's bearish. Well, not really. I mean, yeah, I'm looking for slightly lower levels if we reject the RSI critical zone. But all it really means is 15% to the downside from here to retest the golden retrace, which is a common level for Bitcoin, 21,700, and then looking for a breakout going into the new year. That is currently what I think to be the most likely because we've broken the uptrend line. Breaking an uptrend line is not something to ignore. I mean, we draw these trend lines for a reason. A lot of times the analysts out there on Twitter, they love to be bullish when Bitcoin's above the trend line, and they'll draw this trend line all day long and be really happy about it. But once we break it, they just pretend it didn't happen. But you got to take the calls as they come. If we break the trend line, we have higher lows, higher highs above the trend line, and we get below the trend line, it could just mean lower highs and lower lows for at least some time before finding support. And then again, breaking out closer to the end of the year and then looking to get more bullish as we move into 2024. That is currently how I'm looking at this until proven otherwise, right? I'm not really all that biased about this idea or this point. The trend right now is kind of directionless. I mean, we've been at these prices since March. So I'm not super biased about that idea, right? I'm not really like super leaning towards that. It just seems like what's most probable, what's most likely is slightly lower prices, you know, that are 15, 20% to 21,700 before we get super bullish again. But if Bitcoin does break the RSI critical zone, flips it as support, and we continue to get higher highs on the RSI, well, that would tell me that, well, we're probably going to be looking for a major breakout at that point. So I know what I'm looking for, and right now we are below the downtrend line and we are below the RSI resistance line. So right now the bias tends to be a little bit more towards the bearish side until these conditions change. So that's how I see it at the moment. Now, there's another interesting indicator that I created, a custom indicator. I named it Svenson's Volume Trend ID. And once again, this indicator is available for all Patreon members. In Patreon, we have a 70% discount, which is a lifetime discount. You can lock that in now today and get a hold of some of these indicators. This is using the WiseWave Volume Trend Identification tool, but also using it to repaint the candle colors using the Heikin-Ashi chart style. And when you look at this indicator, it's really interesting to see that it captures most of these trends pretty significantly. I mean, this indicator takes trends in price and also volume-based trends and combines the data, then repaints the candle color with that data. So you can see that there is actually a really big difference between this and Heikin-Ashi. This is basically the Heikin-Ashi chart style on steroids. And so if you look at this zone that we had in April, May, June, if I turn off the indicator to the normal Heikin-Ashi chart style, you can see there's a lot of green candles hidden within. But if you turn my indicator back on, it repaints the entire zone red and keeps you on track for the entire run down. And you know, all of the moves up, all of the moves down. There is no question on where the trend is using this indicator, which again is a custom indicator available to all Patreon members. If I go to the weekly chart, the entire 2022 zone is repainted red because this indicator is doing a fantastic job at capturing trends in price and volume, combining that data and giving us a much cleaner looking chart when you turn on Heikin-Ashi candles. You can see that from 2018, I mean, it's pretty wild. 2018, look at this. From that third bar from the top, it's red all the way until we break out bullish in 2019. So on the weekly chart, it can be super powerful. It's green from April 2020 all the way until May of 2021. So you can see that this is also a fantastic trend identification tool. And what's interesting is that this indicator is also flipping right alongside our RSI breakout signals. It's a really nice indicator to pair up. And also if you're a Patreon member and you have my trend ID signal, when you combine all of these together, you get a really solid sort of long and short-term idea on what the trend is. The primary trend is colored with the EMA bands, and the shorter-term trends are repainted with the correct color. Red for bearish, green for bullish. And you can get a really nice idea of what the primary trend is and what the short-term trend is all together. Right now, we actually have a double bearish signal from these two indicators, which, well, kind of just points to the idea that we may see a little bit of continued downside, which wouldn't be all that bad. If we do get a little bit further down, it would give the EMAs a chance to flip and shift our momentum back up much easier. I'm looking for a little bit more continuation down. Maybe we move up in the short term, but medium term come down to test some lower levels. And then by the time we hit those lower levels and get towards the end of the year, we might see a nice trend shift moving into 2024. Our trend ID will point to trend up. One more leg down at this point, again, until the conditions change. So if we just go back to the normal chart style, everything's normal again, and we look at the RSI, this is going to be a pretty big indicator. If we reject soon, we're looking for those lower levels, those oversold levels, possibly 21,700. If we break out in this RSI here and we actually confirm it as new support and bounce, that's when I'm looking for a possible breakout of this zone. So I hope all of that makes sense. Hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to join Patreon before we close out the record 70% discount. And for those of you looking for platforms to trade on, Kraken Pro, this channel is sponsored by Kraken Pro. Kraken is rated the #1 safest exchange globally. They're one of the oldest exchanges, one of the longest lasting exchanges. And also for those of you looking for futures trading, which is pretty difficult to find in the US, BitUnex is an exchange created by the same people that own BitGet. This exchange is fairly new, and you can sign up without KYC and you can trade wherever you are in the world as of right now. Of course, it's not a place to store funds, but if you're looking for a futures exchange to trade on, there's a link below for $5,500 in sign-up bonuses. Check out all the links below, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.